Hi, everyone. I'm Angela Kurkian, Director of Education here at PPA, and welcome to our very first Imaging USA Unpacked. This is where we get to continue the conversation started at Imaging USA, and you guys get to be part of that. You get to ask questions of our speakers, and today I'm very excited that we get to get things started with our CEO, David Truss. David, thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So you had a couple programs at Imaging, right? We had a lot going on. This was a big show. We did a lot.
It was a big show.
We did a lot of new things this year. What was your? I'm not going to ask you your favorite because that would mean you'd have to pick departments. So I won't say that.
We can't have senior staff members getting upset.
No.
With us, so.
So just let's talk about some of the new stuff that we did at Imaging this year.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big show.
Yeah.
We did, of course, we had great education, great programming throughout. We had great parties, as we always do. We're known for those parties, right? I think Networking Avenue this is our third year, I think, was doing Networking Avenue. I thought that worked out really nicely. We had more space, each convention center, each place that we're in is a little different. Felt like we had a really nice space, even wrapped around the back hallway there, and the signage was nice. I know you guys don't care about stuff like that, but we do. We plan events and work on events, and it just seemed open, and the topics were more defined, and it was busy. There were a lot of people at Networking Avenue. If you don't get to Networking Avenue, you ought to plan on doing it next year. It's really been quite the success. Parties were great. We had a new initiative, a green initiative that we were excited about, not front and center for Imaging USA, but it's important nonetheless. And it was fun to see everybody walking around with the PPA, the PPA bottles,
the water bottles, they were a hit.
They were a huge hit. Sold out. In fact, they sold out fast. We actually, right after the opening ceremony, the opening keynote got done, we started getting text. We have a staff WhatsApp group, and it went crazy. We need people. We need crowd control. People trying to get bottles.
I love that.
Who would expected that? And so they were running to get the bottles. Next year we'll have more bottles. They'll be a different color, have the year on them. So we'll keep that going. And little stickers. I see Angela has one of your.
I know, right?
One of the many stickers that we had available to it. So that was fun, and just we were working hard. Events like ours produce a lot of trash, just events do. And so we had lots of recycling initiatives there and different things that we were working on. And the proceeds all went to Louisville Grows, which is a local charity there in Louisville. So that was fun. But I mean, I would have to say the talk of the show was the new International Photographic Competition.
Yeah,
the Grand Imaging Awards, which was that face-to-face competition in 16 categories and images side by side, and judges, actually choosing between two images on the screen.
Yeah,
it was tough for the judges.
So
it was
exciting.
fun. It was
fun.
Exciting.
Yeah.
People were cheering and booing and heckling, and I heard when an image of a dog and a cat came up, people were meowing and woofing, as a dog. It was an experience unlike anything we had ever really experienced.
I want to just give a shout out to Jerry. Hi, Jerry. I see you on here. I'm glad you're here. Jerry was one of our winners.
Absolutely, and congratulations. You did so well, actually, and it was a pleasure meeting you, both you and your wife. We're happy that you took the time to join. So it was a great event.
It was awesome.
I think everybody was really, really happy. And next year, Dallas is going to be phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Right? It's going to be exciting. And so Dallas is going to be a great event for us as well. We're always happy. People have gotten a little bit of sleep after, the weekend, and we're ready to go. You'd be surprised at how fast we start working on the next Imaging USA. Actually, it was last year's when we started working on the next one, but we slip into the new Imaging USA mode almost
pretty quickly. It starts when we start reading all of your comments. And so if you guys are wondering, we do read through all of those,
every one of them,
especially the things that you want to see and the topics that you're interested in hearing more about. So that helps us actually throughout the year as we're planning, and not only imaging, but all of our education. So I just want to remind you guys, please ask questions. That's what this is here for. So if you have questions, pop them in the question box down there, and I'll get to see them here. So David, you did two programs, right? You had the AI program, which was amazing, with Julianne Cost and David Drum.
She sounds like she's innocent of this, by the way. She actually made me do two programs.
I did.
There were times where I didn't like Angela in early January.
It was, well, they're important. Both of them are really, really important. That's what I tell them every year. All of this is really important stuff. And I think it's, and the comments that you get afterwards and that we hear from people afterwards are really, really appreciative of that. But let's talk about, which one do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about?
Do the first one, which is the artificial intelligence AI
Yeah,
program.
yeah. So we had Julianne Cost and David Drum, and David were in a panel, and from what I hear, David Drum called them ninjas. So I'm pretty sure. Meaning they were very nimble up there as they were discussing this topic, which is actually very fluid,
Yeah.
right? This topic is not, there's no standing still when it comes to talking about AI, right?
Oh, it's in flux, so in flux, right? Everything's changing constantly, and it was a little tricky. And the idea, and how many times? So, 'cause, you know, honestly, Angela, you were with us, and with Julianne and David, and some phone calls, some Zoom meetings that we had prior to this in preparation for it. And I think everybody was a little bit reticent, right? A little nervous about
Yeah,
the idea of talking about AI because everything's moving, and it's hard to speak definitively about sort of anything right now. But we did feel strongly that, you know, the crowd would understand, and they did. By the way, they were wonderful. We had
yeah,
so many people come up and say, look, this is a tough topic. We realize there are no hard answers at this point. Everything, the landscape is shifting, you know, the sands are
yeah,
shifting
yeah,
continuously. People were very understanding, and I was appreciative of how appreciative they were and supportive they were. It makes us want to do this again, I think, next year, just
yeah,
because they were so good about one, they all felt like they had gained additional understanding about the issue of AI and photography in our world. Um, and they didn't see it as the most wonderful thing without some pitfalls, and they didn't see it as a terrible thing that should be avoided altogether. But they kind of left with a more balanced, I think, understanding of all
yeah.
of it, and that made us feel good, I think.
Yeah, I think a big part of it was just understanding the language, you know, just getting the conversation going so that you understood what's out there. Because I think half the battle is misinformation, right?
Yeah, and the language is shifting also. That's an interesting comment actually, because even that is changing. But Julianne, you know, of course, Adobe, she approached it from both an intellectual property and a propriety thing, from the creativity side. I love that she pointed out that it's kind of when you break it down into its simplest forms, it's about productivity and creativity, right? So the productivity side is how to help photographers um, leverage AI in their businesses. And that's what we want people to know is there are so many good tools out there
Yeah,
that will help you with your financials, that will help you data mine from your customers, and it will create for you targeted marketing programs for someone who you know purchased a family portrait with a 3-year-old a year and a half ago, knowing
right.
that a 3-year-old is about to be 5 years old and they need a new portrait. And so
Yeah,
a new portrait, it'll help them do those sort of things. It'll help them with their contact management. It'll help them file their taxes. It'll help them with everything. And you know that's one of the big wins with AI is if you can put some time back into photographers'
hmm,
pockets.
yeah,
Photographers work on average a little over 50 hours a week and earn on average about $40,000 a year. And so if we can put some time back into their pockets so that they can
yeah,
build relationships, go make presentations, go talk to potential clients, or heaven forbid, just go spend some time with their children or with their spouses, right? You know, or in nature or meditating or anything else. If we can put time back in their pockets, that's a big win, right? So AI will help do that. And then of course, Julianne talked about the amazing stuff that's going on in the creativity side. A big part of the discussion that David Drum with H&H, you know, talked about was the responsible and ethical part of AI and making sure that we're doing this the right way. And they're dealing with all kinds of interesting things, you know, like what if they're printing work that isn't copyrighted, and where are those images going when you click submit to whoever you're working with, whoever your providers are? Do you know where that pipeline is going to? Is it going overseas? Is it going somewhere else? Is it going to Asia or to Europe, or is it staying here in North America? Where are you sending your images? Because there are all kind of biometric issues and children's safety issues and everything else that is part of that discussion. So that was really interesting. I think the points that he was making, and they are both just experts. From my perspective, of course, I've been forced, to deal with it on Capitol Hill, where
Right.
it's more of combat there, to be completely honest. I
Mhm.
don't see AI as combat, but the part that I'm involved with very much at times
Right.
is combat, and so as I pointed out there, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I'm not saying AI is just a nail to be hammered, for me, but there are legal implications, and what is copyrightable and what's not copyrightable, and how many AI elements did you pull from somewhere else to embed in your images, in which case it may not be copyrightable.
So no, currently that's actually one of the questions that's coming in. So what is copyrightable? What kind of AI images?
Well,
Or
anything.
is it?
Right.
That's the
Yes.
question.
And so, like, for instance, and the reason, by the way, we had H&H and Adobe on the platform with us is because there are companies that are doing this right, and they prove that they can do it right. They trained their AI and are training their AI by paying creators, well, using some of their own work. Obviously, Adobe has a lot of it, but also they are paying creators to create for them to help train their AI. Look, we get it. That's a more expensive way of doing it, but it's the honest way. It's the fair way. It's not scraping the internet of everybody's work. And so they chose not to do that. They chose to do it correctly. And that was one of the points that we made,
Right.
was during the presentation, was that, look, all of us are making choices. And we need to be celebrating. So, I warned them, this is not a commercial for Adobe or for H&H. We need to be celebrating companies that have chosen the more expensive route, probably, to do it right, to do it legally. And we should be celebrating them. And so that was an important point of the program. You asked a question a second ago that I didn't answer. I stopped halfway through.
No, that's okay. It was just about AI and what's copyrightable. And
yeah. So, and it's a good question. And there are a lot of fights up on the Hill that we're engaged in, actually, that cover that. So at this point, if you're just creating something using Photoshop, which, by the way, uses AI, right? It is AI there. You're still in charge of the creation. You're directing it still. That is copyrightable, right? So using Photoshop doesn't mean your stuff isn't copyrightable. The question is, did you just do some prompts? AI by law is not copyrightable. AI by law is not creation. I don't know if most people are aware of that or not. So AI is not creation, which means if you are just doing some prompts into an AI system and it's spitting out a beautiful aspen tree with red flowers, which they don't have, and giant grapefruit looking fruits that are white and pink, and you spit that because you want that fantasy look, in something that you're doing, that part of your image isn't copyrightable. So you have a conditional copyright that you would have to file to protect that work. And listen, copyright is muddy waters already, by the way. And so protecting that work becomes certainly more difficult. And absolutely, you can't protect all of that, right? So you can't protect anything that is AI element that is generated wholly by AI, right? Without you directing it, not in Photoshop. So you would have to do sort of a conditional copyright on that kind of image, depending on how many elements. But if you're just working on it in Photoshop, if you're just doing that, yeah, then that's okay. It's interesting. Julianne talked about Firefly, which generates some of those images, right? It generates that, whatever you're looking. The real advantage for AI for photographers, I think one of the real advantages is ideation. It's a great way to sort of get ideas. And we've heard lots of creators talk about using it for ideation, just to create. Julianne did, by the way. She said and she's incredibly talented, incredibly creative, but she just put some prompts in and to sort of get some ideas, and it took her down a road on work that she did herself. But it was great for the ideation part of all of that.
So I've got a couple of questions coming in, but I do want to say hello to Della Waters, also one of our World Photographic Cup teammates. So glad you're here. Wonderful. And Grant and Hansel, good to see you guys. Hi, Jeff. All right, so a couple questions coming in. Does watermarking your work help when it comes to AI?
Not so much. And the reason I say that is because, as you are well aware, I mean, you can take crowds out if you've got a beach, an image at a beach that you took. You can take crowds out. You can take things out of the ground. You can take it out so instantly. So watermarks are pretty easy to remove. Remember that any technology that allows you to put in a watermark means that they also created technology to allow it to take it back out, right, to reverse it. And so now watermarks do send the message that this was watermarked and here it is there. So they intentionally removed the watermark to steal it. So they went to additional effort to steal it. So do you have a greater claim or a more powerful argument in that? Yeah, I mean, I think you do. It was clearly watermarked. I've never had this online. When it wasn't watermarked, they removed the watermark. And so in that case, but in terms of actually just protecting it, it won't help it much. And it's pretty easy to remove that watermark. I'm not sure if I answered your question or not.
No, I think that's really good. But then the next question is, how can I protect my images from being scraped by AI companies without my consent?
We're trying hard.
Right.
That's our entire effort up on Capitol Hill. So, and I imagine even today, the AI companies that aren't doing it the right way and the ones that PPA could never support, scraped everybody's work. And what we're trying to do, we're engaged in the creation of legislation that is gaining a lot of steam. At first, everybody was saying, oh, that horse has left the barn. That train has left the station. And we've been saying, we don't agree with that. And now there are Congress people saying, we're going to call that train back to the station and the conductor. And we're going to force them to show us how they did it, when they did it, how much did they do, and roll that back. And yeah, that would be a giant blow. But there is a big movement right now in Congress to, this time last year, I couldn't have said that. Right now, there's a big movement to roll a lot of that back. Of course, by the time that has happened, all of these companies that scraped your work, and they did scrape your work. By the way, I'm not a photographer. They scraped my work too. They scraped everything off of the internet.
Yeah.
And that by the time that happens, they will have made billions and billions and billions of dollars while standing on your shoulders, by the way. And whether or not that money is going to go and they'll do anything with it, probably not. Right. I mean, that part might have left, but we want to force them to stop scraping and to set a marker in the sand that says from now on, all AI has to acquire its stuff legally, right? And that you might have to, they might roll back that AI. So I think that's a big part of it as well. So in terms of protecting yourself, anything you put out there that your friend can see, they can take. They'll scrape. That's just the way it is. It's terrible. But that's the whole scraping issue, and that's everything that we're fighting up on Capitol Hill right now. And that's the reason we talk about. Please engage with companies that are doing this the right way. Don't support companies that have openly, and I'm not going to out them. I've had discussions with them, very frank discussions, and called them out on it, in personal conversations and in other places. But don't support companies that are stealing your work or the work of others. And I've even heard people say, yeah, but it's really cool, and it was just this one thing. And I'm saying, yeah, but you're a photographer. It's like eating our young. You can't willingly take the work of other people in this case and then say, yeah, but I want my work to be defended, right? It's not right. And so in terms of PPA, in our position, we're not supporting any company that scraped the internet.
Well, I'm going to switch because we got some other questions coming in. So I'm just going to switch tack just for a minute because he did another program that was absolutely, you're an entrepreneur, own it, right? And so David, let's talk about that title. I love that title.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I think it's the issue, to be honest, right? I mean, so many of our members are amazing and they're entrepreneurs. And they embrace it, they love it. And then I think I know a lot, maybe even more, that they love being an entrepreneur, but they don't necessarily, but they're still nervous.
Of course, yeah.
And all of our research has indicated over the years, Angela, as you know this, that that they don't feel good enough. They don't feel like they're good at sales.
Right.
They feel like they're
Mhm.
lesser when it comes to their creativity. They don't feel like they're good at talking to customers. They're unsure of themselves as a business person. It's just negative after negative
Right,
after
right.
negative after
It's
negative.
scary to be an entrepreneur, right?
I mean, it is. In some ways, you're an island, right? You're out there
Mhm.
on your own.
Yeah.
And look, we get that, right? But but I think my message is it's okay. Own it. It's all right. It's good to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It's just how, there are all kinds of advantages in being an entrepreneur. You are your own boss. You get to determine your own direction. You get to, to choose your own fate. And really, and this was a big part of the message, I think, is that really there's a lot more that's in your control than there is that's out of your control. I always start just talking about numbers. And I spend the first 5 or 10 minutes, of the program just going through real numbers, because honestly, we're not very good at doing that.
Right.
And people aren't all that aware of what's actually happening in the economy. Why is that? Because they depend on CNN and Fox News and Facebook, and that's their source for financial information. That's no source at all. That's the worst source. That is not where you get financial information. And for a business, but there are lots of independent, real sources out there for that information. I had one, and I always start with it. And I had one, a really good guy who's a friend who came up to me after the program. He said, I know you always give us where this information comes from. He said, but really, I just come to your program every year because I know you're gonna look through it and give it to me. It takes me probably 2 or 3 hours just kind of going through everything to see where we actually are, and then I try my best to sort of spell it out. And that is, the world isn't as bad. Bad times always pass, good times always pass. They're never going to be with us forever. The economy is cyclical, but the entrepreneurial mindset should not be cyclical, right? You should be constant and stay with it. We're always going to have good times and bad times, followed by good times, followed by bad times. And so you can't change. You still have to be an entrepreneur. You can't crawl up into a fetal position, right? Those are the ones who end up losing the game.
I know you spend a lot of time on that. Where do you go to find those data points?
There are several. Most of them are government. Most of them end in .gov. But the U.S. Census Bureau, the financial data section of the U.S. Census Bureau is outstanding. It generally trails behind the Bureau of Consumer Research, I think is what it's called, can give you last quarter. I mean, it trails about an extra month, so maybe it's about 3 months behind, or maybe 4, but it can give you last quarter. I know that I usually am searching in January for what happened fourth quarter in the year before. I mean, and so it's right there. And you just have to, at first it'll look a little foreign to you, but as you start to see, the things to look for. And, and the truth is, was inflation high? Yeah, inflation was high, but we use it almost as a crutch. Inflation wasn't the highest it's ever been. It's not the highest it's been since 2000. It was the third highest it's been since 2000. It was higher in 22, I think, and it was higher back in 2008 than it was last year. And so inflation was higher, but it wasn't terribly high, but we use things to sort of as an excuse to not perform, right? That's the own it part.
Right.
It's like, you're an
right,
entrepreneur,
right.
man. Own this, I mean, don't let people push you around. So much is more in your control than out of your control, like creating an actionable vision, which is really essential. But when it comes to the financial data, I mean, it's that, there is so much out there. And what people don't realize is that our salaries, I know everyone's saying people can't afford to eat. And there is, by the way, there are people that are having a real difficult time with inflation and with the ability to eat. But in terms of photography, and I'm not saying that that's okay, I'm just saying, but in terms of photography, the majority of your customers are all in the other half of that, and that they have more expendable income. The reality is that the American worker on average has more money in their pocket, more expendable income in their pocket. I know people don't say this. They don't say it on Fox. They don't say it on CNN. They don't say it on Facebook. More money in their pocket than any other group in the history of our country. And so there is more money, but and people say, yeah, but things cost so much less back then. American workers today make more money in adjusted dollars, in real dollars, adjusted, and they make more money today than they did in 40s. Actually, I said 44, 54, 64, 74, 84, 94 to that. So the point is that I looked at it by decade, and people have more money in their pocket now than they did, at any other point in history. Now, I know that that's not a popular thing to say. And, when I'm out there giving this program, I'm sort of worried about darts coming out of people's eyes. But I'm just trying to give them real information. I'm not saying life isn't tough.
Well, it's kind of like
it's always been tough for
taking away the things that hold us back, right? We're taking away our excuses.
Listen, that's the entire reason that I start with that.
Yeah.
Is because that's the stuff that stops us from getting out of bed.
Right.
It's the stuff that stops me from, I'm not going to make that proposal. I was going to go pitch to a school or whatever. I'm not doing that today. We get down, then the rumination starts, right?
Yep.
And then this voice inside of our heads starts telling us all the things that can't happen because the economy is this way, and it stops us from getting going. There is more in our control as an entrepreneur than there is out of our control by a long shot. And there are things that successful people do, that are very common between successful people. There's thousands of studies out there, and there are things that successful people actually implement in their lives. And it shows that, and it's over all decades, all periods of time. And it shows that really this is more in your control than it is in the world's control. I mean, if you're going to be successful, it's up to you. That's the whole idea behind entrepreneurs. And the fact that they don't see failure as failure. They see failure as, and this isn't golly, pick yourself up by the bootstraps thing, Angela. They see failure as, oh, that's something I needed to learn so that I can continue to progress, right?
Absolutely.
And people that almost nobody, aside from, shooting for squirrels in your backyard and hitting oil, Jed Clampett, aside from that, overnight successes are never overnight successes.
Absolutely.
It took them,
a little
20 years to become an overnight success. Right?
Yeah. So. Yeah, I love this program so much because I feel like it's, the premise, who we are as PPA is we want you guys to value yourselves, value your businesses, value your time, value your customer, and make a great living for yourself. And it's possible. This is an amazing, amazing industry. And there are a lot of people doing it really well. So we are your forever cheerleaders and just trying to give you all of the knowledge to get you going and keep you going, which is why we're here with you today.
I think we try hard to not be that, golly, you're swell and people like you and pick yourself up by the bootstraps and you can do this.
That's me.
It's really nice to have it around sometimes. But we try not to do that because we want to give you real numbers and real circumstances because this is real. And what's the difference between a really successful entrepreneurial business and a failed one? It's usually the individual. It's usually the entrepreneur who's decided to be successful and is doing everything that they need to be doing to be successful. And so that's kind of the gist behind, a lot of these.
Yeah. So what was I know you were flocked by lots of people after your program. Was there a question that a lot of people were asking?
Well, first of all, I was followed by Dan McClanahan. So they just wanted me to get out of the room so Dan could start. I'm good with that. I understand myself, and so I'm okay, completely okay
Dan
with
does
that.
have a great.
Actually, I wanted to stay and listen to Dan too, but I had stuff that I had to go to. I think the reaction was really positive. It's always positive. First of all, it's a little bit of a vetted crowd, right? They know when the program's called "You're an Entrepreneur, Own It."
Right.
They kind of know
what they're gonna get.
Yeah, but it's never a pep talk. It's
a little bit of a pep talk. If you're listening to it, it is. It's a little shot. Positive. It's a little infusion of
positive.
Go get it.
I don't think that the world is going to heck in a handbasket, and I don't think that the market is such that in fact I think it's the opposite. I don't think that it's such that that photography businesses are going to fail left and right. I don't think that is the case. I think that AI, as an example, is going to shine a bright light on the need to know what is real and what isn't real. And I think photography has always been the keeper of what is real. I know you get tired of hearing me say that.
I don't get tired of that at all.
But photography is the keeper of what is real from that very first, time that people were captured on camera in 1838, on that Paris street corner. That was it. The photographers were the keepers of what is real. You're important to our world. And that's not a pep talk. That is just reality. And as AI blurs all of those lines and makes all of that more and more, look, nobody's putting AI kids up on their walls, right? I mean, we don't want that. And so I think real human, certified real is going to be more and more and more important. And so I think professional photography is well positioned actually to deal with that in the future. And I think in a surprising way, AI is going to have that effect, I think, on the market. But it doesn't stop us from having to be real entrepreneurs and, having not just a vision, but an actionable vision, for our company and for our entity.
So I have a question for you, because we have to wrap up. So if you have any more questions, pop them in the question box now. But I am curious because we have so many messages. We are covering lots of fronts here at PPA today, February 5th. What's your best piece of advice today
for
an entrepreneur out there?
Entrepreneur?
People working hard, getting their year started. Our year doesn't start till after imaging, so we went around the office today saying Happy New Year to everybody.
That's odd, but it's true. There's no New Year really for us until after
now.
Imaging USA. And it was even later this year because it was third week in January, third and fourth week in January. Well, it would be too simple to just say, own it, be an entrepreneur. Don't dabble, don't be halfway in, but be an entrepreneur. And that means that everything that goes along with it. It doesn't mean just be a great photographer. It means understand your market, understand where we are in terms of an experiential economy, understand that I think it's 82%. When I go back downstairs, Scott Kurkian will correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think it's 82% of consumers purchase their photography or use a photographer based on the ease of working with that photographer.
That's true.
I hate to say that.
No, that's true.
It's not your image.
And it's not price either.
It's not price either. It's the ease, simplicity of working with you, that experience, and so be an entrepreneur, understand your numbers, have an actionable vision. Don't just say, I want to make more money this year in this area. Fine. How are you going to do that?
Right.
And how do all of those steps actually make it to your calendar? Because if it's not on your calendar, it's not actionable, because your calendar runs your life. It runs all of our lives. Sorry. And so it's got to be an actionable vision, and then understand our market. I mean, where's the money coming from? It used to be that it was Gen X. They're in the driver's seat. They're in all the C-suites. Gen X rules the world, highest paid generation in history. Baby boomers still contribute more to the economy than any other generation. Millennials are right there on their tail. So this is a really positive thing. It used to be Gen X and then baby boomers, and millennials were not quite there yet. Now millennials are there. Baby boomers are still spending like crazy in all categories. And Gen X is, Gen Z is not there yet. And Gen X is, they're careful consumers. They do a lot of investigation before they purchase. They also are saving for retirement. They're now paying college tuitions. They have bigger house mortgages and other stuff. So they're a little more leveraged than millennials, who have their own walls and are married and have babies now.
Yes. Yes.
And the most photographed generation in history is, you think they're not going to put pictures of their kids all over the walls? I mean, the market's good, right? And baby boomers, I mean, baby boomers and their grandchildren, I mean, they'll spend anything on their grandchildren, and so understand those markets and where the relationships are. We're in a great position because we have baby boomers, Gen X, and millennials all sort of in a peak right now. I'm not sure that's ever, you could ever say that about this many people, consumers in the American public, all with money in their pocket at the same time. The world's telling you it's horrible. It's not necessarily. I don't believe that it is. I think that's my message, is that
Yeah,
be an
yeah,
entrepreneur, own it,
yeah,
and be excited
yeah,
about things. It's more in your
yeah.
control than out of your control.
I know that you think that you're not a cheerleader, but that sounds like being a cheerleader to me.
I just look really bad in the outfit. So it's,
Things look good. That's really the message, isn't it? It's really, and we're here for you. We're here to help answer questions. We're here with education. We're going to be continuing these conversations with IUSA Unpacked. So we hope you can continue to join us Tuesday or Mondays at 2. David, thanks so much for
my
joining us.
pleasure.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll see you next Monday. Bye.
See ya.